My presentation is called You Don't Think God is Sexy? 3 Interpretations of Come by Prince. My title is a question Prince asked during a 1996 interview with the Globe and Mail. He followed up by saying, when you have faith, serotonin starts pumping in your brain. It's the same as when you have an orgasm. The belief that spirituality is as fulfilling as sex was not new for Prince. He'd explored that message in the past, especially on his 1988 spiritual concept album, Lovesexy. Some critics have failed to grasp the meaning of that album and its nude cover, and they were similarly close-minded when interpreting the album Come, released August 16, 1994. For example, the title track was taken literally by Q magazine writer Adrienne Dubois, who confidently told Prince the title track was unarguably about orgasm. That's your interpretation, Prince said during the interview. Come where? Come for whom? Come for what? Or come to whom, he said. Though there was likely an element of coyness in Prince's response, the song and album are layered with meaning. Today, I will explore Come as a song about orgasm, spiritual transcendence, and freedom. I will also demonstrate that the Come album is a commentary on Prince's artistic and spiritual rebirth. Finally, I will show how Prince's subsequent album, The Gold Experience, compares to Come as an expression of his spiritual journey. When I do these presentations, I always like to present a timeline of Prince's spiritual development, so this slide should look familiar to some folks watching. In the early 1980s, Prince was using songs like Uptown and Sexuality to share a spiritual message of liberation through sexual freedom. But in the mid-1980s, at the height of his Purple Rain fame, he was also struggling to reconcile his sexual image with his religious beliefs through his conversations with God on stage and on songs like Temptation. Following a spiritual awakening at the end of the decade, Prince was proclaiming Jesus as his God on the Lovesexy album. And by the early 90s, Prince was in a spiritual wilderness period, returning to raunchy material as he worked to reclaim commercial success. He also embarked on an intense exploration of Eastern spirituality and Egyptology, searching for peace as he engaged in a battle with his record label and experienced some personal struggles. By 1994, he was almost out of this wilderness, achieving some clarity after changing his name and growing closer to his future wife, Maite Garcia. He was even starting to get more comfortable mixing sexual and spiritual messages as he once had in order to lead people to God. With all of that in mind, let's talk about the song Come, an 11-minute jazzy horn-soaked R&B song of epic proportions. Yes, it is about sex, specifically oral stimulation. There are sound effects that I don't care for. There are also descriptions that I think are pretty creative. For example, Prince sings about a strawberry chocolate Fender Jazz mashed potato fuzz tone all over your thighs. But Prince also sings, It's Just You and Me, Baby, Tonight and Forevermore. At the time, a lot of Prince's so-called sex songs also contained messages of commitment. For example, if you really pay attention to the lyrics of Sex EMF, you will find that it is promoting, quote, monogamy and marriage, which is the description Prince himself used to describe the song in a 1996 interview with the Globe and Mail. Of course, promoting sex within a committed relationship is rooted in biblical text, which Prince was engaging. And if we zoom out and look at the Come album as a whole, we'll see that a lot of it is about love and inspired by the Bible. We've heard this earlier today, but the song is built around the Song of Solomon, aka the Song of Songs in the Bible. The brief segment of the Bible stands out for its poetic depiction of romance and sexual yearning between a man and his wife who was, quote, undefiled before their marriage. According to Prince Vault, Prince originally composed a song called Poem, featuring lines inspired by the Song of Solomon. Ultimately, he cut the song down and spread the lines throughout Come. They appear as spoken word introductions to songs set against the sound of crashing ocean waves. The rest of Poem eventually became Orgasm, which closes the album. Coincidentally, biblical scholars disagree on whether Song of Solomon is to be read as one cohesive work or a collection of smaller poems. It is not known if Prince was privy to this debate or how he interpreted the structure of the Song of Solomon or why he made the choice to break poem apart and change the name. Prince slightly alters passages from the Song of Solomon. Here's just one example. One of many examples, rather. The protagonist in the Song of Solomon says, "I sat down under the shadow with great delight, and his fruit was sweet to my taste." In the introduction to the song Pheromone, Prince says, "Lie down beneath my shadow with great delight, and your feel will be sweet to me." The Song of Solomon was clearly very important to Prince, as he wrote that it should be used to teach young people about sex in his 2019 memoir, The Beautiful Ones. Having the Song of Solomon read and discussed with you by someone who loves you, preferably an elder, would be my choice, he wrote. It must be noted that the Song of Solomon has been interpreted as a metaphor. For example, some Jewish scholars see the text as an allegory for God's love for Israel, while some Christian scholars see the text as an allegory for God's love for people, and specifically for Christ's love for all Christians, or the church. Those interpretations of the Song of Solomon make it even more fitting source material for Prince, who often used coded language to write about God. So that brings us to the second interpretation of Come. Spiritual transcendence. During the song, Prince expressed interest in his lover's spiritual well-being. He sings, "Don't be surprised if I tell you to go bare, long as you wash between your soul and through your hair." Perhaps going bare, much like that nude Lovesexy cover, is about spiritual purity. The line is also reminiscent of a lyric on the song Love to the Nines, "Your soul a bath, what if I gave it?" Also consider this line from Come. "No more will you cry, spirit's calling, here's a reason why. If you had a chance to see the future, would you try?" We know from Prince's interviews that he ultimately equated spirit with the voice of God, specifically when it came to changing his name to the love symbol. "I followed the advice of my spirit," he told Vibe magazine in 1994. "I acted on the advice of my spirit," he told Q magazine that same year. And in 1998, he explained to Tavis Smiley, "One of those things I was asked to do by my inner voice, which I believed to be my higher power, was to change my name." So, on the song Come, if Prince is defining spirit as the voice of God, he may be highlighting God's ability to wipe away every tear, taken from Revelation 21:4, which is a passage that is arguably referenced in other songs in Prince's catalog, including Elephants and Flowers and Seven. On Come, the future that he envisions could be one in union with God, achieving an ecstasy that is, as he has stated, comparable to orgasm. It also wouldn't be out of the ordinary for Prince to be expressing how sex brings him closer to God, especially since the Bible sanctions it as a holy act between married people. Furthermore, Prince may have been embarking on a new mission to draw listeners in with sexuality, with the intent of communicating a higher message. In response to the famous CJ of the Star Tribune, who asked Prince in 1997 whether God approved of his sexual lyrics and performances, Prince said this: "Sex is the door opener. Once you open the door." Prince paints a similar sexual and spiritual fantasy on the song Space. "Don't you want to go," he asks, "where the souls go, where the tears flow, where the love grows." In Prince's mind, the space could be a place of sexual ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy, or both, that he wants to go to with one chosen woman. The spiritual element is even more apparent on Space Universal Love Remix, which Prince chose to release as the single with the original version as the B-side. "All the pain that a human has to go through, and a planet that's so bitter and cold," Prince sings. "Universal love awaits you, baby. All you gotta say is that you really, really, really want to go." His concept of a supreme love may have been rooted in God or in the perfect union of the masculine and feminine, which leads to a state of enlightenment, according to the Eastern theology that he was also studying at the time. Now let's zoom back out to the Come album as a whole. The cover depicts a funeral and features a church and the text Prince 1958 to 1993. It indicates Prince's last bit of newly recorded material that he released under his birth name while still at Warner Brothers. It indicates his name change, but also his spiritual rebirth. Prince said in numerous interviews that becoming the love symbol wasn't just about recording independent from Warner Brothers, but getting out of a spiritual box that he was in, freeing himself from his ego, and being more dependent upon God than fame. Prince had to die because my life was going through changes, he said in a 1995 interview with Q magazine. I was going through a very spiritual part of my life, and I was no longer Prince. That was my way of dealing with it. It was a great spiritual revelation, and the last time it happened was on Love Sexy, and the time before that was Purple Rain. It is not the first time it's happened. Perhaps this is what Prince is referring to with his statement in the liner notes of the Come album. This is the dawning of a new spiritual revolution. That brings us to the third interpretation of come, becoming free. When Prince asks, if you had a chance to see the future, would you try? It's not just about the afterworld. It's also about creating a better future for artists. As Prince advocated for control of his master recordings from Warner Brothers, he envisioned a world where all artists, especially Black artists, could own their work. Shortly after Come, he began proclaiming Welcome to the Dawn, which is not just, as he stated in a 1997 interview with Minnesota Monthly, a time of greater consciousness and spiritual understanding, but where he believes the record industry is headed, as he stated on his website, thedawn.com, in 1996. During this period, he was not only recording a bunch of independent material, but also advocating for the independence of other artists. He also embraced a new theme in his music, telling Vibe magazine in 1994 that he was writing more about freedom and the lack thereof. So, when he puts out the Gold Experience under his new name in 1995 and states Welcome to the Dawn in the liner notes, he is expressing a message of freedom in multiple forms: artistic, economic, and spiritual. And this is the point where a lot of Black liberation theology comes into play, as Seeley mentioned earlier. And comparing Come to the Gold Experience is like viewing the dark before the dawn. Come is the foreshadowing of the spiritual revolution. The Gold Experience is its arrival. In the liner notes, Prince also writes, hate versus love, no contest. Love will always win. Love God, love life, love sexy, peace and be wild. 7 years before proclaiming his death and rebirth with Come and the Gold Experience, Prince presented a similar transformation with the Black Album and Love Sexy. By acting out his death during his performance of Dolphin on The Late Show with David Letterman in 1994, and during his performance of Bob George on the Love Sexy tour in 1988, he achieved the same goal. He communicated that he had reached a new phase of spirituality. The parallels had to occur to Prince, which is likely why he references Love Sexy in the liner notes of the Gold Experience. But Prince was evolving beyond the Christian-focused aim of Love Sexy to present a broader message of freedom. He was no longer exhibiting guilt about his sexual expression and therefore did not appear to censor himself. He seemed confident in using that content for a greater purpose. The start of Come to the end of the Gold Experience is like an oral representation of his journey to his new purpose. Again, on Come, when he asks, if you had the chance to see the future, would you try? The lyrics of the song Gold work well as a follow-up. Step aside and make a way for those who want to go. You can read more of my writing at apurpledayanddecember.com and author.com/Erica Thompson. And please consider buying a copy of Theology and Prince, which includes my essay on Graffiti Bridge. And yes, I'm still working on my book on Prince's spiritual journey. Thank you for listening.